Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. First of all, thank you all very much for joining today. And as I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the Bhagavad Gita, which is actually a very ancient Indian scripture. So, first of all, let's see how one should receive knowledge. So, today we are going to take on some knowledge from the Bhagavad Gita, but it's important to know how should we take the knowledge. So, there are three ways to receive knowledge. One is called by sense perception. It's called pratyaksha praman, sense perception, which means we believe in what we see. Now, let me give you an example. Supposing I take a glass of water and I put a stick in that water, how will the stick appear? The stick is going to appear crooked because it's in the water. So, does that mean the stick is crooked or bent? No. The stick is straight, but our senses are seeing it in that form. So, when we talk about taking on some spiritual knowledge, we cannot depend on our senses. Another way to receive knowledge is Anuman Praman, which means we base our conclusions on evidence or we make assumptions. That also is not a good idea when it comes to spiritual knowledge. Then one may say, then what should one do? There is a third way, which is called Shabda Praman, which is word of authority. Someone who is bona fide, someone who is in authority to give spiritual knowledge, we should take from there. Now, unfortunately, we human beings, we have four defects. Bad news, but that is the truth. Most people have tendency to cheat, make mistakes. We all have made mistakes in our lives, imperfect senses, and we are in illusion. So what happens, because we have these imperfections, we cannot come up with perfect knowledge. Perfect knowledge comes only from the perfect source, which is the Supreme Lord. And this Bhagavad Gita is actually spoken by the Supreme Lord himself. Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad means Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord, and Gita means song. So it is a song of God. And you will notice that when we start studying this scripture chapter by chapter in a systematic way, we will see in the second chapter there is a Sanskrit verse which starts with Sri Bhagavana Uvacha, which means the Supreme Lord said. So this gives us an idea that Bhagavad Gita is spoken by the Supreme Lord. And actually it's not a religious book. It is just, you can say it's a science of self-realization where we will learn 5 different subjects all throughout the Bhagavad Gita. There are 700 verses, and it talks about who we are, the spirit soul, who is God, what is this material nature, eternal time, and karma. These are the 5 subjects that will be discussed throughout the Bhagavad Gita. And so if we have not heard Bhagavad Gita before and we would like to learn it, so I would suggest that at least have basic faith that Bhagavad Gita is spoken by the Supreme Lord. Let me just have that faith and hear, at least in theory, and then contemplate on it, and then, if possible, practice it. So let me give you a backdrop of how this Bhagavad Gita came about. It was re-spoken 5,000 years ago, over 5,000 years ago, in a holy place, which is called Kurukshetra. In fact, I visited that place myself. Probably 20 years ago, I went to this place where this Mahabharata took place, the great war that took place there over 5,000 years ago. And over there were two sides. Obviously, in a war, there are two sides, opposing sides. So one of them was religious and the other one was irreligious. Now, the religious side, the soldiers, they were headed by five brothers who were called Pandavas and very dear to the Lord. And whereas the irreligious people, there were about, they were, on the side of 100 sons who were all irreligious of a king who was blind, and his name was Dhritarashtra. That blind king was not only materially blind, but he was also spiritually blind. So he did not really bring up his children in a religious way. So they were on the irreligious side. So here there is a war taking place between religious and irreligious people. And then Supreme Lord is also present over there at that time. And he is present on the side of religious people, obviously. And he is on a chariot with his friend, one of the five brothers, who's known as Arjuna. So, this is the backdrop. And it would be nice if we can hear and understand this Bhagavad Gita just like Arjuna understood it from Krishna, the Supreme Lord Krishna. So let us see, what does the Bhagavad Gita talk about. Actually, the Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all the Vedic literature, all the Vedas. It's the essence. And whatever important points are given in the Vedas, that is all present, condensed in the Bhagavad Gita in 700 verses. Now, this Bhagavad Gita is in Sanskrit, and we don't know Sanskrit language, so how do we understand it? So, Srila Prabhupada, he was a very eminent, very famous Sanskrit scholar, and he's the one who translated the Sanskrit into English, and he also gave us a wonderful purport for each Sanskrit verse. And he did not make any changes. He gave it to us as it is, as you can see, Bhagavad Gita as it is, without any interpretations. So this is actually an owner's manual, just like, when we buy a car or we buy some gadgets, we get an owner's manual with it, which tells us, how to use it. So similarly, Bhagavad Gita is an owner's manual for human beings. Now, today, I am going to just give you an overview of the 18 chapters. There are 18 chapters in this book, 700 verses, as I said. And the very, if somehow or the other we can hear the Bhagavad Gita with an open mind, we will find answers to all the questions we may have. And I can guarantee you, once you understand this Bhagavad Gita, the end result will be, one will be happy and peaceful. We will get all our questions answered. So let's start with chapter 1. Chapter 1 is actually the battlefield, the scene that is taking place on the battlefield, description of that. But at the same time, on the chariot is Arjuna and the Supreme Lord Krishna. And Arjuna is full of compassion because he's seeing on the opposite side, those who are his enemies are his relatives, his cousin brothers, his teachers, his grandfather. They are all opposite him. And he is such a pure devotee of the Lord that he is confused. He's like, how can I kill my relatives? Right? If someone told you, come on, go kill your sister or your brother or your father, that is very, very hard, right? Because we love our, near and dear ones, our relatives. So Arjuna was very confused. He said, how can I do that? I know they are irreligious. I know I have been religious all my life, but how can I kill? It is so difficult. So he's lamenting. He's lamenting and he's giving reasons to Krishna why he should not fight. Sometimes when we don't want to do something, we find a lot of excuses that, oh, it's because of this, or whatever it may be. But finally, Arjuna approaches Krishna and says, please accept me as your disciple, and please become my spiritual teacher, and please tell me what I should do. I'm confused about my duty. I don't know whether I should fight, I should not fight. What should I do? Please guide me. This is the first chapter, the whole battlefield scene and Arjuna's lamentation. Now, the very first verse of the first chapter, I will repeat, I'm going to say it in Sanskrit and then I'll give you a translation also. It says, Dhritarashtra Uvacha, which means the blind king Dhritarashtra, he is speaking. He says, Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsava. Mamakaha pandavascheva kim akurvata Sanjaya. He is inquiring from Sanjaya. He had an assistant who was actually given a divine vision. Sitting in the palace with the blind king, he could see what was happening in the holy place where the war was going to take place. So, sitting in the palace, he could see everything. So, here the blind king, he is inquiring from Sanjaya, when my sons and the Pandavas, they assembled in the holy place called Kurukshetra, what did they do? So, from this very first verse, we can see that the blind king, he knows that his children, all his sons were irreligious. And the end result will be that they are going to get killed in the war because they were not following what they were supposed to do. They were very, very irreligious. So, here, the blind king is still having a hope that maybe, maybe the religious people will say, oh, let's not fight, let's all just go home and be friends. But no, that's not what's going to happen, because from the second chapter onwards, Krishna will start speaking. He is going to guide Arjuna and give him the very first lesson of the Bhagavad Gita, which is the foundation. It's the found, just like when we build a home, we always make sure that the foundation is very strong. So similarly, if we can understand the foundation of the Bhagavad Gita, then we can build on it all the other chapters. So in chapter 2, Krishna tells Arjuna the very first thing is, Dehino asmin yatha dehe, kaumaram yauvanam jara, tatha dehantara praptir, dhiras tatra na muhyati. This is in Sanskrit. So the translation is, as the embodied soul, which means the soul which is inside the body, as the embodied soul continuously passes from boyhood to youth to old age, similarly, the soul passes on to another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So he's explaining to Arjuna that all these relatives of yours who are on the opposite side, they are all eternal spirit souls. They are right now in a particular body, and when they die, they are not going to die. It's the body that is going to be destroyed, but they will move on to the next body because they are a spirit soul and they were not going to die. He says, Na jayate mriyate va kadachit. Krishna tells Arjuna that for the soul, there is neither birth nor death. It lives forever. And we need to understand this difference between body and soul. There was a very famous person called Harry Monson, and he did a lot of research, and he finally found out that this body, after the soul leaves the body, what is the value of this body, which is actually a bag of chemicals. So whatever leftover chemicals there are in the dead body, he said the value is $5.60. Can you believe that? This body is very valuable as long as the soul is inside that body. The moment the soul leaves the body becomes useless. It does not function at all. The eyes will not be able to see, the hands will not be able to move at all. So that is, we need to understand that there is this gross body which we can see, and then there is a subtle body which is inside the heart, which comprises of mind, intelligence, and false ego. These three, the subtle body is in the heart, along with us, the real us, the spirit soul, and also the supreme super soul, that is the supreme Lord, situated in the heart with us. So when the soul leaves the body, along with it, it takes the subtle body, and the Supreme Lord also goes on to the next body. This is how it is understood. So if we can focus on, we don't say that just because I am not this body that we should not take care of it. Yes, definitely. But we should also, just like we feed the body, we need to feed the soul also. And the food for the soul is the Bhagavad Gita, the spiritual knowledge, which helps us to understand, who we really are, what are we supposed to do, why are we here in this world. All those questions are answered in the Bhagavad Gita. So let's go on to chapter number 3. Now, chapter number 3 is very interesting, like the other chapters. It is entitled Karma Yoga. I'm pretty sure you all have heard about karma yoga, right? It is actions and reactions. But then chapter 3 teaches us there are different kinds of karma, and there are different reactions. Like there is karma, akarma, vikarma. We'll go more in detail into that when we come to chapter 3. But important point to understand is every action has a reaction, whether we like it or not, either good or bad. And the purpose of chapter 3 and 5, chapter 5 is to help us to perform our activities in such a way that there are no reactions at all. Because if there are going to be reactions, then we have to reincarnate. There is going to be another body, so that whatever we are facing right now, good or bad, is based on our past activities. So similarly, we have to carry along with us our reactions to the next body also. So chapter 3 is going to show us how we can remain karma free. Just like we find in the market karma free diet, right? Have you heard of that karma free diet? So similarly, there is karma free life. Yagnarthat karmano nyatra loko yam karma bandhana tad artham karma kantaya mukta sangha samachara. Krishna tells Arjuna that work done as a sacrifice for the Lord has to be performed. Otherwise, the work causes bondage. And no one likes to be tied up or in bondage. So it's going to teach us different ways how we can perform our activities in such a way that there is no more karma. Then we go on to chapter number 4. Chapter 4 is basically, it's entitled Transcendental Knowledge, and it gives us the history of the Bhagavad Gita. Right? History. Imam Vivasvati Yogam Proktavan Aham Avyayam. Krishna, the Supreme Lord, is telling Arjuna that I gave this knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita to the sun god Vivaswan. And when we calculate, the different ages and the lifespan, it comes to 120 million years ago, this Bhagavad Gita was first spoken. Then Krishna tells Arjuna, Evam parampara praptam imam rajasya vidu. He says this spiritual science, he doesn't call it a religion. He says this spiritual science is again being spoken to you, Arjuna, because over passage of time, this knowledge was destroyed. So Krishna re-spoke this Bhagavad Gita over 5,000 years ago. So just like Arjuna is learning the Bhagavad Gita from Krishna, similarly, we need to learn this Bhagavad Gita from a certified teacher. By the way, I am a certified teacher in case you have a doubt. So this is how we can take on this knowledge, contemplate on it, and then decide, is it something I want to hear more? Is it something I would like to follow? Let's go to chapter number 5. Chapter 5 is again Karma Yoga, but Krishna is describing action in his consciousness, action in Krishna consciousness. How we can perform the same activities, but we just need to change the consciousness, right? And he also gives us a peace formula towards the end of fifth chapter. He says, Bhoktaram Yagna Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwara Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gnatva Mam Shantim Richati. Shanti means peace. He gives us a peace formula. If we want to be peaceful, just follow this one verse from the Bhagavad Gita and we can certainly attain peace of mind. Then we go on to chapter number 6, which is Dhyana Yoga, which is meditation, right? A lot of knowledge is given about meditation, how we should meditate, where should we sit, how should we sit, on what should we sit, on what should we focus. All these questions are answered in chapter number 6. And towards the end of the chapter, Krishna gives the summary of the whole chapter and he says, Yogi nam api sarvesham mad gati nantar atman. He says the topmost yogi, there's a yoga ladder. I had given a lecture on the yoga ladder a few weeks ago where we discussed, there is a karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, ashtanga yoga, bhakti yoga. So these are the different rungs of the yoga ladder. But Krishna says the topmost yogi, the one who has reached the topmost of that ladder, is one who thinks of the Supreme Lord within the heart. That is real meditation. And in this age that we are living in right now, with so much chaos, so much suffering going on, especially with COVID-19, right? So, how can one be peaceful in such a situation? How can one meditate? He gives that process also, how to meditate. At the end of when I finish 18 description of 18 chapters, we will do a little bit of mantra meditation to get a taste of it. How does it feel to do some mantra meditation? Then we go on to chapter 7, where Krishna explains to Arjuna about 4 kinds of people who come to the Supreme Lord and 4 kinds of people who do not come to him. He says, Chatur Vidha Bhajante Mam. Chatur means 4. Jana Sukritino Arjuna. Sukritino means pious people. 4 kinds of pious people come to the Supreme Lord. And there are 4 kinds of people who do not surrender to the Supreme Lord. Of course, there is a lot more knowledge in that chapter, but it's hard to explain in one session. So let's go to chapter number 8. In that chapter, Krishna explains to Arjuna about how we can attain the Lord, how can we connect with him, how can we build a relationship with him. And he says that yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajat ante kalevaram tam tam eveti kantaya sada tad bhava bhavitaha. He's explaining that whatever we are remembering. See, this Bhagavad Gita not only teaches us how to live, but it also teaches us to how to die successfully so that we do not come back into the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease, so that we can break the cycle and go to our original home, which is the spiritual world. So he explains that whatever we think at the time of death, to that state we will attain without fail. So if I am going to prepare myself during my life to be conscious of the Supreme Lord all the time in whatever I am doing, then obviously when I'm about to leave the body, I will remember him and go back to him. So this is like a preparation, how we can prepare ourselves for the final examination. So that is what he teaches us in chapter number 8. And chapter number 9 is entitled Most Confidential Knowledge. Now you may say, knowledge, chapter 9 is over here. Anyone can open the book, read chapter 9. So what's confidential about it? right? It's not a secret at all. It's open. It's there in the book. Well, it's there in the book. We may understand it theoretically, but we may not really realize it. For that is why it's most confidential. To understand the Bhagavad Gita, to understand this most confidential knowledge, we need to practice what we hear from chapter 1 onwards. And it says in chapter 9, Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dhridavritaha. The Lord says that we must chant his holy name, right, with determination. And you must have realized that we need to have determination to do anything we want to do. If we have a goal in life, if we want to achieve something, we need to have determination, otherwise we will not be successful, right? So similarly, even on this path of learning the spiritual science of self-realization, which is the Bhagavad Gita, we need to have that determination that no matter what, I will come every Tuesday and I'm going to hear what is there in this treasure house, which is called the Bhagavad Gita. Now, chapter 10 is talking about the opulences of the Supreme Lord. He says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mataha sarvam pravartate. He says that everything emanates from me. And that is true, right? The Supreme Lord is one who has created everything, and from him everything comes. So, this is what we learn in chapter 10. And then he also says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatan priti purvakam tadami buddhi. Buddhi means intelligence. We may be very intelligent as far as the material knowledge is concerned, right? Academics is concerned, we may be very intelligent, but the intelligence that is required to understand the spiritual science, that we can receive only by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. And he gives us the formula to receive that mercy. He says, if somehow or the other we can perform this mantra meditation with love and devotion, with love and devotion. Then he says, I will give the intelligence to that particular person so that they can understand what is given in the Bhagavad Gita. Now, from chapter 2 onwards till 10, it was all theory, right? Krishna was explaining to Arjuna about himself, about us, the spirit souls, and all different kinds of knowledge he gave on different topics. But in chapter 11, he shows it practically. It is called the universal form. That's the title of the chapter 11, which is the universal form. And what does he do? He practically gives a demonstration of his universal form in which Arjuna can see everybody inside the body of the Supreme Lord. He could see the planets, he could see himself in there, he could see everything. So this is to give us a proof that it is the Supreme Lord who was speaking the Bhagavad Gita. It is him because he was able to prove it that he is the Supreme Lord. Let's go to chapter number 12. It is entitled Devotional Service, Bhakti Yoga. As we have heard before, yoga means to connect. Bhakti is devotion. So to connect with the Supreme Lord through devotion. And he gives a lot of different options for us, for proper engagement in devotional service to him. He says, if you cannot do this, then you do this. So all different options, he gives so that we can choose what is convenient for us. Chapter 13 is about this material nature, how it is created, how does it work, how can we understand this whole material nature. And chapter 14 is modes of material nature. There are three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So these three modes are explained in chapter 14, where Krishna says, Mam cha yobi vabhicharine bhakti yogina sevate sagunan samitatyanan maruma bhuraya kalpate. What does it mean? That those who perform full devotional service to the Lord, unfailing in all circumstances. It doesn't matter what the circumstances. Then what will be the result? They will be able to transcend these three modes. Even the mode of goodness, they will transcend and they can come to the perfect stage, which is pure goodness. And in that chapter, we will also learn how different kinds of food fall into these three different categories: goodness, passion, or ignorance. How determination, understanding, happiness, everything in different modes of material nature, we will learn in chapter number 14. Let's go to 15. Chapter 15 is Yoga of the Supreme. And there, Krishna gives us a very, very important verse, and it's verse number 15. He says, Sarvasya chaham hridi sanivishto mataha smritir jnanam apohanam cha vedescha sarver aham eva vedyo vedanta krit vedavid eva chaham. He says that I am situated in everyone's heart. The Lord is in everyone's heart. And he says, from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Now, he has given us three options. And he says, now you choose. What do you want to choose? If you choose to remember me, I will help you. If you choose to forget me, I will help you. If you choose to get my knowledge, I will help you. This is what he says. And the last two lines of the Sanskrit verses, he says, I am the compiler of the Vedas, and the purpose, the goal of the Vedas is to know me. So this purpose of this Bhagavad Gita is to understand Krishna, to understand the Supreme Lord. Then we go on to chapter number 16, which is divine and demoniac nature. In that, Krishna also, he gives us the nature of those who are divine and those who are demoniac. And then along with that, he tells us that there are three gates that lead to hell. It is lust, anger, and greed. Talking about, three gates leading to hell, I just remembered a story. I hope no one is a yoga teacher in this Zoom meeting, but let me tell you the story. So there was this gentleman, he, after death, landed up in hell. And when he landed there, the superintendent, or you may say the manager or whoever was there, he told him that you have three options based on the activities that you performed. You're supposed to be in hell, and here are three gates. You choose whichever you want to choose. So he peeped through the window and he saw that in that particular room there was hot iron on the floor, and the people had to stand on that, and they were really screaming because their feet were burning and they couldn't even stand. So he said, no, 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 I don't want this, I don't want this. Then he went to peep into the second one, and when he noticed the second one, there were, very sharp nails on the ground, and people had to stand over there, and then, their feet were bleeding because, the nails were poking into their feet. So he said, no, 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 I cannot go inside this room. Now the only option left was three, just the three. So he went there, and he saw there, and he said, oh, this is very nice, I think I'll go in there. It was just, the whole room was full with cow dung. I don't know if you guys know what cow dung is. It's, you know, um, I don't know how to explain. It's whatever the cows, throw out. It is cow dung, it's very soft, and it really smells horrible. So people were standing in that cow dung filled up to their neck. So he said, this is very simple. All I have to do is just stand in there. I won't get burnt. My body will not get hurt. There'll be no bleeding. I just have to stand there. So he said, okay, I choose this one. And he went in that room. So he was there for 10 minutes, and then the manager blew the whistle. And when he blew the whistle, that means Everyone has to now go upside down. They have to do a headstand. Like in yoga, they teach a headstand, where your head is down and your legs are up there. And he said, oh no, this is worse than those other two rooms, right? He said, I know I'm a yoga teacher, I can do headstand, but not inside the cow dung, right? That is horrible, really horrible. So here we can see three gates of hell, three gates that take us to hell: lust, anger, and greed. And Krishna explains in that chapter how we can avoid these three gates and not go to hell, but instead we can prepare ourselves to go to the spiritual world where there is no birth, no disease, no old age, no death. Chapter number 17 is about divisions of faith. And chapter 18 is a summary of all the chapters. And there is one verse which summarizes the whole Bhagavad Gita. And that is chapter 18. Towards the end, verse number 66, Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityagya mam ekam sharanam raja aham tuam sarva papebhyo moksha ishyami ma suchaha. He says, abandon everything and just surrender unto me. He says, I will remove all your past sins, sinful reactions. I will just make the slate clean. And he says, Ma Suchaha means do not fear. He's giving a guarantee that if we can understand this Bhagavad Gita, if we can put it into practice, if we can make mantra meditation our daily routine, then the Supreme Lord will help us. Krishna will help us to remove all the sinful reactions that we've accumulated so far and become purified. So, mantra meditation is a very powerful tool. The sound vibrations are so powerful that they can purify our heart of whatever may be in there, in whatever degree, whether it is lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, illusion, could be anything, whatever it may be, in whatever degree. The mantra meditation helps to cleanse the heart and make it pure. And once that happens, then our consciousness also becomes pure, and then we are happy and peaceful. So let us do a mantra meditation for a few minutes, and maybe you can also try. What I will do is I will try to, let me see, post it in the chat. Let me see, where is the chat? Okay, I find the chat. Okay. So, oh, I just noticed that the sound is low. Is it okay now? I hope it was okay. I'm going to type the mantra that we can chant together. Bear with me for a minute. I should have typed and kept before. Okay, here is the mantra. Okay. Okay, so if it would be nice if you all can join me in repeating this mantra for a few times so that, we can get some benefit. Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So if we can, chant this, do this mantra meditation on a daily basis, then we will really be able to see the benefit also. I know some of you have joined this class before or have come again. Thank you so much. I wonder if any of you tried to do this mantra meditation during the week. And if you did, if you can share your experience, that would be nice. And also on this Facebook page where the event was advertised, there is also a link if you would like to join the WhatsApp group to get any updates. So if you're interested, you can join. And from next week onwards, we will start with chapter number 1 of the Bhagavad Gita. Thank you so much. If anyone has any questions, you can ask. Well, thank you for your comments. Okay, looks like there are no questions. Okay, so we will meet next Tuesday at the same time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we will start with chapter number 1.